audience. That guy. Okay, so today most people have a specific genre of music that they prefer, like a favorite kind of music. And by genre, of course, I mean hard rock, rock and roll, classical, metal, bluegrass, country, etc., etc., etc. The list goes on and on and on. So, what are some of you guys' favorite kinds of genres? Does anybody have?
Not bluegrass.
Not bluegrass. Okay.
Jazz.
Jazz. Anybody else?
Alternative rock.
Alternative rock.
Salsa.
Salsa. Okay. All right. So, obviously, there's a ton of different genres in music, but the three kinds of genres we're going to talk about today are hard rock, metal, and classical piano. So to start off, I'm going to play you a song that most would consider hard rock. Not the whole song, obviously, just a small section. And that's all I'm going to play for that one. And that song is a song called World Long Gone by a band named Stars on Broadway. So that's just one example of hard rock music. Some other examples of certain bands that would be considered hard rock are Korn, Disturbed, 3 Days Grace, bands along those lines. Bands that are hard rock typically have heavier guitar, really a lot of depth to the drums, and some kind of bluesy vocals, like raspiness and things like that. In fact, study.com defines hard rock as, or says, hard rock is one of the many subgenres that distinguishes certain type of rock music from other types of rock music. Hard rock is characterized by an emphasis on bluesy guitar riffs, powerful vocals, and heavy thunderous drums. So, like I already said, hard rock basically is overdriven, hard, heavy, hence the name hard rock. And basically it's taking rock music and adding some oomph to it, I guess you could say. And that's what hard rock is. The next genre we're going to talk about is metal. And metal is a very broad description of dozens and dozens, if not more, subgenres, like hair metal, speed metal, grunge metal, punk metal, death metal, etc., etc. So even certain genres have tons and tons of subgenres, like metal. We're just going to focus on metal as a broad topic. So I'm going to play another little bit here for you of what would be considered a metal song. So that's an example of what metal is. And that song was a song called Laid to Rest by the Lamb of God. So some other examples of metal are, of course, Lamb of God, All That Remains. You, of course, have some of the older bands like Guns N' Roses, and it goes on and on and on. You have some modern bands like Bring Me the Horizon, Asking Alexandria. And that's essentially a good idea. I think that song is a good idea, a good example of what metal is. Metal is similar to hard rock in the way that it is consistent of a lot of kind of overdriven guitar and heavy drums. Vocals can actually, the same style vocals can be used in metal as in hard rock, but a lot of the time they have even more overdriven and enhanced vocals like screaming, and you have the high-pitched wailing and all sorts of other weird techniques for doing metal style vocals. Metal is different from a lot of hard rock because it's very fast paced most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. It's very fast paced and consists of really technical guitar as opposed to the hard rock, which is a lot of power chords. So that would be the difference and some similarities between metal and hard rock. The last type of music we're going to focus on is classical piano. And this one's going to take me a second to get set up here. Just try and point this here. I'm not as good at piano as guitar, so forgive me if I butcher this. That is a pretty popular song by Beethoven, which is part one of a three-part sonata, which is nicknamed the Moonlight Sonata. I can't remember the official name of it, but Moonlight Sonata is what it's best known as. So that is an example of classical music. Of course, some other classical piano music would be like Chopin and Mozart and things along those lines. And while that song itself might not be super relatable to most metal, a lot of classical piano is actually very technical and very fast-paced in a similar fashion to metal. In fact, a lot of metal's core chords and melodies are taken from a lot of classical piano. And that's kind of where metal gets its fast-paced technical parts. The way that it relates to hard rock is probably significantly less. There's probably much more differences between classical piano and hard rock. And the way that hard rock consists of some very powerful chords, like piano often does, is probably the only similar way I can think of that those two could be relatable. So those are our three musical genres. And basically, that's pretty much the whole speech. I just wanted to show everybody what three different kinds of music are and how they relate in certain fashions. And also bring up the idea that if we take a look at other different genres, I'm sure that even though they seem a lot different like metal and classical piano, I'm sure if we actually take a look at their cores, we can find a lot of similarities between them. And that's it. Thank you very much.